Hello, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, a senior White House official says Obama wasn't totally honest about the Iran deal. World War II veterans march in Jerusalem, and Israeli students come up with a new medical device to save terror victims. I'm Denise Wood here with the latest news in Israel. The Iran nuclear deal with world powers has gotten a lot of criticism all over the world. And now a senior White House official is claiming the Obama administration wasn't totally honest about the deal. Ben Rhodes is a senior White House official, and now he's saying that the Obama administration had tried to make the Iranian government seem more moderate in order to get more people to support the nuclear deal. The information was revealed in a New York Times piece written about Rhodes. When he told a reporter the Obama administration claimed it began talks with Iran in 2013, after the country elected a more moderate government, when in fact they began in 2012 under Iran's previous hardline president. In fact, Rhodes claims all of the details for the interterm agreement that the final deal was later based on were all agreed to with the previous radical government, not the new government under Rouhani. Obama even gave a speech saying the negotiations had lasted for 2 years, from 2013 to 2015, while in reality they started an entire year earlier with a different Iranian president. The New York Times reporter also interviewed former head of the CIA, Leon Panetta, who claims the CIA never felt that the Iranian government was split between moderates and radical hardliners. In fact, he claims it was clear that Iran's Revolutionary Guards and Supreme Leader ran the country with a strong arm, rather than it being run by moderates. Panetta also served as a former Secretary of Defense for President Obama, and said part of his job had been making sure Netanyahu didn't preemptively strike Iran's nuclear facilities. And it looks like Netanyahu might be the only one he would have had to worry about. Panetta also said he thinks if it came to it today, Obama probably wouldn't strike Iran to keep it from developing a nuclear weapon. This all comes as Iran is releasing information that it successfully tested a ballistic missile with a range of 2,000 kilometers. Israel is located about 1,800 kilometers from Iran by air. When you hear about anti-Israel boycotts and movements, sometimes it looks like the Jewish state has a lot of people working against it. Yosef Ben Aaron is a veteran Israeli diplomat who served for decades in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and also as Director General of the Prime Minister's Office. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz sat down with him to talk about how the world views Israel, and what he has to say might surprise you.
I think it's moderately positive. This may surprise you, but I think since we, and I personally, have been so many tempests and ups and downs, in the relative sense, I think we're doing all right. The basis for this appraisal of mine is that internally, economically, we are doing very well. And in our relations, commercial relations with the East as well as with the West, we're doing fine. This counts. On the more political international level, there are many complaints in Israel. This is a long custom of the Jewish people. We complain, which doesn't help so much. But to be fair, we have a problem in the international arena, a problem that I would characterize as a problem of image, perception, hasbara. And that we've had accompanying us for a long, long time. And it's still there, and it may have made a few notches worse than what it was after 67, of course, but even in the 70s. We were better off than we are today because the Arab side, led by the Palestinians, is a little bit more sophisticated than it was then. And the sophistication expresses itself primarily, or perhaps typically, in the BDS movement.
Well, is it a problem of hasbara, of Israeli public information, or is it a problem that we really lack a clear policy?
Well, we don't have a hasbara policy. That's beside the point, but that's the part of reality. This has accompanied us since, I don't know, long ago, because I remember hearing this in cabinet meetings even, on the part of people who either were senior officers. This is also was typical, I think, even of Rabin himself. It's what counts is what you do, what is your strength, and the perception of your real strength, not of your message. So, and this is a mistake, because the Arabs are exactly opposite of this characterization. For them, it's how you look in the international arena is what is important, not what kind of strength is you have behind your image, your perception. Because I really believe that some improvement in our Hasbara pitch can neutralize much of the gain that the Palestinians have been making on our account. Well, you know me, you've known me. I am a believer. I believe in the might of Israel's devotion to its mission, not mission so much but in faith in its future in this land, so that I have no qualms, I have no problem with the ostensibly slow movement toward achieving that mission, that we call it the redemption of the people of Israel and the return of the exiles and all of that. But we are making progress. I'm already past 80 years old, and I was here when Jerusalem was divided. And I recall the days that there was some hesitation or lack of faith in our future because of our dire situation in the War of Independence. So when I look back, I see tremendous progress that we have made. Bottom line, I am optimistic. I am happy that I am here in Jerusalem, I live here, and I think with just a little bit better leadership, we can make headway and provide for a very rosy picture for our people and our land.
Yossi Ben Haron, thank you very much for being with us here at ILTV, and I'd like to wish you and your family a happy Independence Day.
Thank you. Shalom, shalom.
Yesterday, around 500 World War II veterans staged an annual march in Jerusalem to commemorate the 71st anniversary of their victory over the Nazis in Europe. Most of the veterans were from Russia, and some of the former soldiers marched with their children and grandchildren, including grandchildren who are currently serving in the IDF. The commemoration in Jerusalem came one day before Russia's Victory Day celebrations in Moscow, where tanks and troops traditionally parade across the Red Square. Some of the veterans live in Israel, while others came just to visit and take part in the parade.
Прекрасно. Чувствую себя прекрасно. Рад, что я дожил до сегодняшнего дня.
Сегодня я в Иерусалиме первый раз с фотографией, к сожалению, деда. Он в живых сюда не попал. Но я прошелся с ним. Для меня он живой. Мы вместе прошли по Иерусалиму, отмечая праздник Победы.
Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat marched at the head of the parade and says the residents of Jerusalem are proud to have these brave and courageous men marching in the Israeli capital, to remember their victory as well as remembering their fallen comrades. Prime Minister Netanyahu also sent a message to the parade participants, paying tribute to the victims of the Nazi regime and those who fought against it.
אנחנו מציינים היום ומחר את יום הניצחון על הנאצים. אנחנו חייבים תודה לאלה שלחמו במפלצת הנאצית, וביניהם מאות אלפי יהודים ששירתו בצבאות בעלות הברית. חלקם נמצאים איתנו היום, הווטרנים ואחרים. אנחנו מצדיעים להם.
As you heard in our last story, yesterday marked 71 years since the Allies triumphed over Nazi Germany in World War II. Israel talks a lot about the Holocaust, but for a long time the country didn't talk very much about the Russian Jews who fought with the Red Army against Germany. But now that's beginning to change. Eli Gorosovsky has started a movement called Heroes of World War II that calls on young people to commemorate what their grandparents did to fight against the Nazis, and he's here to tell us more. First of all, thanks so much for coming in.
Sure, thank you very much for inviting me.
So what exactly is this movement?
Okay, well, about 2 years ago, I've started interviewing World War II veterans and writing their story. The reason for that was that I noticed that many of them were absolutely anonymous, and many people in Israel didn't know who were the people who ended the Holocaust, who were with their own lives and almost sacrificed themselves
Sure.
for this victory to be true. So I started interviewing them, and I searched for some place where I can put those interviews in the Hebrew language so that everyone can read them. And after some newspapers told me that it's a bit problematic, not around the day of the memory of Holocaust, it would be problematic to do it on a, I don't know, weekly basis. I started writing on a Facebook page dedicated only to this issue.
Fantastic. So who are these veterans exactly? I know some of them are Russian, but I understand there's other groups as well.
Yes, sure. So currently in Israel, there are approximately 2,500 of World War II veterans, people who actively fought in World War II against the Nazi troops. Most of them are from not only Russia, but all the countries of the USSR, Ukraine, Belarusia, many of those. And there are small groups of American World War II veterans and also British World War II veterans. And also there is a group of veterans who were volunteers from Israel to the British Army to fight against the Nazism, and they were living in Israel before the war.
Definitely. So I understand it's not just a Facebook movement, there's also Zikaron B'Salon. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yes, sure. About 3 or 4 months ago, some great people from an organization called WWII, which is Generation 1.5, talked to me. And those people are, their goal is to talk about Soviet culture in Israel. And they talked with Zikaron B'Salon, which is an organization which organizes meetings with Holocaust survivors, and not formal meetings, like in the living rooms of volunteers, and there is 20, 30 people are coming and hearing the story from the person who survived the Holocaust. So they told me that they want to do the same with World War II veterans, because there are not so much of them, and many of the stories never been heard. And this project will be a bit more complex because there need to be translators for many of them. And there we started working together. I volunteer in the organization of the World War II veterans and the organization of World War II people who were injured in World War II. And after speaking to them, I got all the lists, and we did a lot of phone calls. And on the 4th of May, there were approximately 50 or 60 meetings between World War II veterans and Israeli people.
Wow, fantastic.
Yes.
So for people who want to attend one of these talks, how can they find out about them?
Well, those specific talks were only exclusive for the 1st and 5th of May 2016. And after I saw how much people are interested in that and how many people really wanted to come and hear those stories, I really want that more of those meetings will happen. I am a great enthusiast of meetings between World War II veterans and Israeli citizens, because I think it's also very, very important for the World War II veterans, because they understand that the younger generation really is interested in what they done and didn't forget their heroism in World War II. And the people themselves, if it's youth or soldiers or just any citizen in Israel, it's very important for them to know how the Holocaust ended, like who were the people who were fighting the Nazis. And I think that I'll, of course, continue working with WWII. They are very enthusiastic, very interesting people. And I hope that many meetings will be in this year, not around the month of May.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for coming in. It sounds like a great movement, and we're excited to hear about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This Wednesday is Israel's Memorial Day, when the country stops to commemorate fallen soldiers and victims of terror. If you're wondering how you can get involved, one grieving Israeli father has come up with an incredible new app to help people find out about memorial events. The Israeli Defense Ministry has just unveiled the new application, which was inspired by Ofir Mendelovich, who lost his son Oz in the 2014 war with Gaza. The father asked Israel's Defense Ministry to implement the application, which is called Hugs All Year, and tracks and lists hundreds of memorial ceremonies for fallen soldiers throughout the year. The application was released just ahead of Israel's Memorial Day this Wednesday, and families of fallen soldiers have already been working to update the app with memorial events like marches, runs, and bike races. The app lists all the events in chronological order, and even gives directions to users to help them get there. The idea behind the app can be seen in the name, which is to give grieving families a hug all year long. The Defense Ministry says it hopes the app will help families to update the general public about memorial events, so more people can join in honoring the memory of the fallen soldiers. We've been talking a lot about the wave of terror in Israel, which injured and killed numerous Israelis. Well, it turns out the Hebrew University has come up with a new device that should help save victims with collapsed lungs, which happens a lot during stabbing attacks. Students at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem have come up with a new life-saving device to help deal with collapsed lungs. The condition happens when air collects in the space between a lung and the chest wall, causing the lung to collapse and the victim to suffocate. It's actually a very widespread condition that's believed to be responsible for a third of preventable deaths on the battlefield and in terror attacks. The current procedure to fix a collapsed lung is very difficult and takes a long time, and researchers realized they needed a new solution during the current wave of terror, when numerous victims suffered from the condition after undergoing stabbing attacks in the chest. The students came up with a new device called the Thora XS, which shortens the time it takes to insert a chest tube and relieve the condition from minutes to under 30 seconds. The device also cuts down the numerous steps and makes the action a one-step, life-saving procedure. The university is praising the students, saying they're an example of how to respond to terror attacks with the ingenuity needed to save lives. Israel's getting ready to celebrate its Independence Day this Thursday, and we thought we would take a look at one of the reasons why the Jewish state is so special. I recently sat down with Holocaust survivor Rita Casimo-Brown, who talked about her experience during World War II and why moving to Israel was such a dream come true.
In 1941, the German Nazi occupied my little town, chose 5-6 families to do the labor work, forced labor, for the German army, Nazi army. We were in a small ghetto on the edge of town, 6 families. Father escaped with the 3 children. I was the oldest. We didn't have any kind of structure. No school, no food, no clothing, no anything. And all the years was survival. It was like hunger and fear. Hunger and fear, hunger and fear, and the specter of death every minute of the day. He went to a little village called Malaki, and there a Christian family he found that was very poor, and he brought a sack of gold, and they were going to hide us. So he dug a pit, which we called the kever or grave, underneath the cowshed. My father, my mother, and the 2 small children, my little brother and my sister, were between them. For me, there wasn't room, so I was lying in the passage from the pit to the potato bin, and then there was a ledge that led to the farmer's home. This is how we lived. The first 3 months, the farmer gave us food. He thought after 3 months the war will be over. And after that he stopped, but he gave us the leftovers from the rabbits. He had a rabbit farm. And we sat there for 22 months. It was like, it was total darkness. I just didn't want to live. I was so discouraged. I wanted to die all the time, was planning what to do to die. The German army came closer to the little town, Malaki, and my father felt that we must escape. I couldn't walk, so my mother led me like anyone would lead a dog, on all 4. We left like that, and then we came to opening a glade, and all of a sudden we heard a shot, and then more shots. The bombs are flying over our head, and we're just walking. Nothing is happening to us, you know. We're put in the displaced persons came in Germany, in Bad Reichenhall. We were there for 3 years. And I wanted to come here, but I was too young to go alone. I was in a youth movement that was very Zionistic. I have everything here. It's like the land of milk and honey. I'm very lucky, and it's a miracle that I'm sitting here with you, Denise.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Today's word is nitzachon, which means victory in Hebrew. Nitzachon comes from the Hebrew verb lenatzeach, which means to win. When you say nitzachon in Hebrew, it can mean any kind of victory. For example, if a soccer team wins big in a game, you can say, "Ize nitzachon," or "what a victory." But victory can also mean something much deeper, like the Allies' victory in Europe in World War II. It's interesting to note that in Hebrew, the word victory has the same root as the word netzach, which means forever. So if you're talking about a victory in Hebrew, take a minute to think about its connection to forever, and how some victories really have lasting consequences. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Today it's 75 and overcast in Tel Aviv. Tomorrow it should warm up to 76 and it should stay cloudy until Wednesday. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.78 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to check out our evening update every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, and see you tonight.